Hey, Disturbing listeners, a lot of you have been asking me to react to the Gabby Petito police body cam video, so that's what I'm going to do today. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. I know enough about this case to know that Gabby is dead. She has likely been murdered, and the suspect or the person of interest involved in the case hasn't been found. He seems to be on the run. So this is a tragic case. It is difficult to contemplate what happened. It can be traumatizing. So make sure that you watch with care. And I'll tell you, for me, watching the news clips and the updates up until today, which is Sunday, the 26th of September, I will tell you that y'all will ask me to watch reality TV sometimes, and sometimes there can be some real traumatizing material on these reality TV shows, but not usually. But this takes it to a whole other level. This is real life. This is someone being murdered, a sweet young person who had her whole life before her and had her life taken away. It's just awful. My thoughts go out to the family and everyone involved in this. So, make sure you take care of yourself as you expose yourself to this story, including this video. Also, of course, we're going to be talking about intimate partner violence and domestic violence potentially. And so if that triggers you, watch with care. Let's watch.
What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
I'm Brian. Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry. We've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I know enough about the case to know that just before this, there was a 911 call. I don't know the timeline exactly. You can watch other videos to get a full timeline. There was a 911 call from a witness saying that they saw Brian, or someone who fit the description of Brian, hitting Gabby on the sidewalk outside of their van. From the description of the witness, he was chasing her and hitting her. I think we know that detail. I don't know if the police officers know that. I don't think that they do. And you would think that they would, given that the witness had called 911. You'd think that that announcement would go out. Who knows? The car was weaving. It was going 45 and a 15. Hits the curb. Police officer pulls him over. Asks them what's going on. Gabby says that she was distracting him from driving. The other thing I'll say here is that it's eerie to watch this because Gabby has been killed and she's dead. And watching this, knowing that she would be killed soon after this, is really weird to watch and hard, difficult, sad, mildly traumatic. Makes me angry. The police were right there. I think it's natural to try to look for a scapegoat and say, could the police have done something? Maybe we'll see something.
You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and
Okay.
I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like.
All right, so she's saying that she has OCD. We could maybe take her word for that, but some people will say they have OCD when they actually don't. There's a lot of people today who will describe themselves as OCD when in fact they have a preference to be clean, they have a preference for order, and they'll say, oh my God, I'm so OCD. So I don't know if that's what she's saying, but regardless, the broader context of what she's saying is, I wanted things to be orderly or clean, and I was apologizing to him because I can be mean sometimes. Okay, so what does that tell us? Given what we know, what happened just before this, that he was observed as the aggressor, because the 911 call wasn't like, we have two people fighting. It was, I have a guy who was beating a woman. I don't know the exact wording, but, and then of course we know that she is murdered, possibly by Brian. And so when we see this moment, it's like, okay, well, what's actually happening? Because if you just take verbatim what she's saying this is all my fault. I was being mean and I was distracting him driving. But in the broader context, it's possible, seems likely, that she is victim of ongoing abuse, and it has learned to blame herself. And this is where gaslighting actually comes. And you'll hear me talk about gaslighting and say that people are overusing that term, because for decades we've been using the word gaslighting in the field of intimate partner violence, domestic violence. It is a situation where you have the abuser that will sometimes consciously, but usually it is part of their own distorted thinking, will impose a reality on the victim to perpetuate the high control that convinces the victim that they can't judge reality accurately. There's something wrong with their memory. There's something wrong with their emotions. There's something wrong with their perceptions. They end up generally distrusting their own reactions to things, their own ideas. And it keeps the victim in the victim status, and it keeps the person in control, which is either that by design, because some perpetrators wake up in the morning and say, actually, I'm going to gaslight. They don't use that word necessarily, but I'm going to mess with the victim's mind such that they question their own reality so that I can have more control over them. Some abusers do that, but most, in my experience, because I've actually treated perpetrators, they don't purposely do it. They're purposely abusing, and they're to blame for that for sure. But their abuse often comes from a very distorted place that's based on abuse and their own personality issues. And they're so convinced of their distorted way of seeing the world that it has a gaslighting effect on the victim, because the perpetrator's reality often will dominate because they're physically asserting their reality on the victim. And it's easier if the victim just says, okay, you're right. Maybe there's something wrong with me. So when we see this, is that what we're seeing? Possibly, right? That she actually isn't to blame, because we know that a witness just saw her being beat just earlier. So why doesn't she bring that up? Why does she say, like, well, I'm emotional right now, and I was distracting him from driving because he's been beating me all morning, and he's been high control for months now. But when you're in a victim status, you don't necessarily have a grasp on reality because you've had reality beat out of you or intimidated out of you. So maybe that's what we're watching right now.
Towards him, I guess my vibe is I hear him be in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning. Again,
she's saying, I kept apologizing to him. It still doesn't explain why they were swerving around. She says she was distracting him. But anyway, she's saying that I've been mean to him. I kept apologizing to him. I'm so sorry. That's another sign of victimhood because of their ongoing. And that's the thing that people, unless you're in it, it's hard to comprehend what being a victim of high control domestic violence is like. Especially in this moment, it's like, well, why would you blame yourself in this moment? Why would, if he was beating you all morning, why wouldn't you just say, hey, he's been beating me all morning, and I'm having an emotional episode right now because I'm so scared and I feel so hurt and I don't know what to do. Why wouldn't you be that way? Well, it doesn't take into account the ongoing nature of abuse and the ramping up of abuse and the cyclical nature of abuse that messes with your mind. And there are people that I've talked to about this that'll be like, well, I would never give into that. I'm strong. No, anyone, believe me, anyone who finds themselves in an abusive relationship would be gaslit under those circumstances. No one is immune to that. It's not a sign of weakness. And that's often what is believed. Oh, this person is weak or that. No, take it from me. Anyone, the strongest person in the world in a context of high control and intimidation will end up blaming themselves irrationally, seeing the world through the abuser's eyes, that kind of thing. The other thing that sometimes people will say is, well, why don't you just get out of the relationship? Well, the reason is because there's various different factors, but one of the main reasons, we need relationships. We need attachments. We need closeness, and we depend on each other. And so when we fall in love, particularly, and we're really attaching to someone, and then the abuser ends up, because often abusers don't reveal their behavior in the beginning. It ramps up over time for various reasons, but you're attached to someone. and you need them. What can happen is the abuser can actually abuse you to such a point where you actually don't believe anyone else will fall in love with you. Anyway, let's continue watching.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an all-organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That
Okay.
was my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. I
Okay.
have a blog and stuff. So I've been building my website, so I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it, so that's kind of been like a, I don't know, he's like a downer. I don't know, we've just been fighting all morning.
All right, we hear a couple details there. She is saying we've been fighting all morning. And she says, I've been trying to build my blog, and he doesn't believe that I can do it. All right, there's a little hint there. Who knows? We might not ever know is the thing. But there's a possibility that he is high control and also abusive and intimidating and gaslighting over time with her. And she's been trying to build her career, this blog. She's like, and he doesn't want me to do it. Is that just, he just is like, yeah, go for it, but I don't know if it makes a lot of sense, or that's not the kind of life I want to live, or something. Maybe he's saying it in a nice way. Or is that also him trying to break her down, trying to isolate her? Because if she has a blog, one of the things about abusive individuals is they will either psychopathically on purpose or as a part of their attachment reactivity and distortions will isolate their victim, because it's much easier to control someone and to keep them close to you when they're isolated and they don't have other people in their life. Having a blog isn't very isolating, right? If you are concerned as a perpetrator to have control, you can't have that person posting all day long, because what if they post a black eye, or what if they just, in the heat of the moment, just text something like, or post something on Instagram like, Brian is abusing me right now, or we're fighting right now, and that causes a lot of eyes and attention. And there's a lot of allies that you have online, and perpetrators don't want that. So again, I want to describe the difference between psychopathic, sadistic individuals and the vast majority of abusers. And there is a possibility, given that she's murdered, it raises the possibility of psychopathy and sadism. There are some people, genetics or experience or both, who lack empathy for other people. They're callous. They just don't care about other people. Like when I watch fail videos on YouTube and someone falls over on their skateboard, I cringe, like, oh, that looks like it hurts. That's because I'm not a psychopath. I feel other people's pain, and or when someone's crying, when I'm watching 90 Day Fiancé and Kenny and Armando are crying, I start crying because I'm not a psychopath. I have empathy. Now, if you don't cry when that happens, it doesn't mean you're a psychopath, but I'm just saying that the vast majority of people, including myself, are not psychopathic. We, often the internet will call them sociopaths. And so these individuals are either born or experience or something happened to them such that they just don't care, and they have needs. So they have attachment needs. They have life needs. They will be in relationships. All of us want our spouses to do things for us, right? Like we want them to do all the chores. We want them to laugh at all of our jokes. We want all those things, but we also care about their feelings if we're not psychopathic. But if you are psychopathic and you're in a relationship, you want them to laugh at all your jokes. You want them to do all the chores. You want them to meet all of your needs. And you don't care about their feelings. You don't care about their needs. And you don't care about their experience of meeting your needs. Or there's a lack of caring or a lowered caring of someone else's feelings, because there's a spectrum there. Anyway, so when you have a situation like that, it can often be abusive because there's this constant requests happening to the victim from the psychopathic person, and no accounting for how the other person is taking it. Anyway, and that can actually ramp up to abuse, where the person is like, you're not meeting my needs, and I'm just going to slap you because I don't really care about you. And maybe that'll get you to do what I want you to do. And the abusive person just doesn't care about your feelings. Just like, well, if slapping you or gaslighting you works, then I guess that's what I'm going to do, because I don't care about your feelings. I only care about my feelings. And then if you add sadism into it, meaning that you take pleasure in other people's pain, then obviously that's going to make it a lot worse. Okay. That's a rare individual. The internet will think every abusive person is a narcissist, is a psychopath, is a sociopath, this kind of thing. But actually pretty rare. And of the perpetrators that I've treated, very few of them were like that. There are people like that, though, and it is rough to be around someone like that, by the way. The vast majority of perpetrators, they are usually attachment injured severely when they're young, such that they are extremely triggered when there is any sign of distance between them and their partner. They will be very hurt and very angry, and they feel very righteous about it because they're transferring it, they're displacing all of that pain from the past onto their current partner, and they're distorting everything that's happening. So they're abused growing up, abandoned growing up severely, and then their partner comes home late from work one day. And someone who wasn't abused growing up would just be like, well, it kind of hurts, but no big deal. But because this individual has all this attachment injury, it wounds them, it triggers them, and they feel very hurt. They feel like they came home late from work. They don't care about my feelings. Now I feel abandoned. And then the perpetrator will get very angry and say, I will not let that happen again. And they might actually hit someone and say, I can't believe you came home late from work. I'm going to strike you so that you don't do that again. I need you to understand that doing that is wrong. How dare you do that to me? And the person isn't waking up in the morning and saying, I don't care about this person's feelings. I'm just going to slap them around to make them do what I want them to do. It's a reaction to a wound, possibly complex PTSD or a personality disorder that's being triggered, and then they react. And they believe, if you hooked them up to a lie detector test, was it justified to hit that person? They would say, yeah, it was justified. I mean, look what they did to me. They showed up late, and we agreed that they were going to be home at 5 o'clock, and they weren't there. And, who knows what she was doing? And it'll feel justified. It'll feel moral to them. To the psychopath, they know that it's not moral. They've learned over time, no, it's not okay to slap people around, but I don't care because I don't care about people's feelings. So the psychopath kind of knows it's not okay. Sometimes really they know it's not okay, but they don't care it's not okay because they don't care about other people's feelings. They also don't care about following rules. But that's a rare person. But the vast majority of people that I've treated, perpetrators, it's this personality disordered, complex PTSD, abuse, attachment injury, reactivity that happens. So which one is Brian, if any of those? Who knows? Now, I will say that either category can kill their partner. And the perpetrator of murder of women is often their intimate partner. Who knows? But again, trigger warning, right? I said that earlier. This is getting into some potentially very triggering stuff. So check in with your body, make sure that you don't expose yourself to discussions that are going to hurt you.
And he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because of your OCD?
He told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time.
All right, we're hearing more details. She's saying he locked me out of the car, and the police officer's like, why? And she's saying, well, because I wouldn't calm down. And then she's like, but I'm perfectly calm all the time. Okay, now we're starting to hear maybe the truth coming out a little bit. The non-gaslit truth, if you will, of I'm calm, but he's always telling me to calm down. This is a gaslighting technique. I don't know if that's what's happening right now, but that absolutely is something that perpetrators will do, is they will intimidate and beat or control, threaten. Then when the victim starts to get activated and terrified and maybe even defend themselves, the perpetrator will say, calm down. You need to calm down. And that's part of that gaslighting situation where the victim is like, okay, I just need to. So the common scenario for a victim is, I need to watch what I do. I need to be very regimented about my behavior because if I step outside of this zone, I'm going to be hurt. But you can only do that for so long. And sometimes perpetrators will just invent stuff to beat you for. So you're staying in that lane, and then something happens and you're being abused and you're hurt and you're thinking, no. And often as a victim, you're trying to plead. You're like, can we please just have a good relationship? I want you to love me. I want you to be a good partner. I want us to have a good time. It's not just like, I need to get away from this person. It's I need you to stop beating me so that we can be happy together. It's often what is the hope and the wish. What do I need to do as the victim to get you to calm down? So there's this, state that the victim is in. The victim is being victimized, and then the victim will start to have so much unbridled emotional motivated behavior that you're running out of the car, or you're crying, or you might even be hitting back at this point. And then the perpetrator will go, well, now I got her. Well, now I have her in the palm of my hand because look at her. She's out of control. And now I can say, look, this is why I beat you. This is why I control you. Look how crazy you are. You're like insane right now. You're hysterical. And this is also involved in misogyny and toxic masculinity. And this idea is in the air, regardless of the sort of relationship you're in, that women's emotions are irrational, that women are irrational. And so we might be hearing evidence of that Gabby is saying, I'm often calm. He's often telling me to calm down, but I am calm usually. So maybe that's what we're seeing. Who knows? There's a lot of other possibilities, I will say. I want to be clear. I'm not diagnosing from afar. I'm not saying Brian is even the murderer, because I don't think anyone knows that yet. I'm not saying he's a murderer. I'm not saying he's a psychopath. I'm not saying he's sadistic. I'm not even saying he's abusive. I don't know. I can't tell. There's just signs of things that I'm going to comment on.
Gabrielle, you talked to my fiance, right?
What's that?
You talked to Gabrielle, right?
Yeah, I just spoke to her.
Yeah.
So, you want to do me a favor? Let's go ahead and get you to step out of the vehicle, alrighty? So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, like, I locked the car and I walked away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything. So I give her time, and we really had a nice morning, if anything, but she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like arches before this stuff every time.
All right, so it's hard to tell what's really happening here. It's easy to look at the murder and to implicate Brian, and then to look at this situation and say, well, we know what happened because we are making up a story in our mind. It's quite possible that that story is close to reality, but it's hard to know based on what we're watching. And anyone who claims that they can tell by watching this what exactly is happening is just making stuff up in their mind. Because when I started treating perpetrators and victims of domestic violence, intimate partner violence, I had it in my head that there are good guys and bad guys, and there are these clear, almost movie versions of domestic violence. And sometimes it is that way, but it usually wasn't. There was usually a lot of nuance to it. There usually wasn't a good, the victim can do bad things sometimes. The victim can victimize sometimes in the midst. It's usually in self-defense, but things get messy is my point. And so it's hard to tell based on what we're seeing here. But anyway, so there's some notable things. One is that he seems calm. One of the hallmarks of being a psychopath is that you actually don't have a lot of fear. And that's one of the theories as to why psychopathy develops in the first place, is that you're born without a strong fear neurological system, such that when other people are giving you feedback to how they're feeling, it doesn't frighten you. An example that I'll give sometimes is you're 2 years old, you're 3 years old, and you hit your younger sister, and your parent like freaks out. Your parent goes like, "What are you doing?" Because that'd be a normal response from a parent. It's like, and the parent might even yell or something, but might be like, "No, don't hit your younger sister. Don't throw that at your younger sister." And to a normal child, to a child with a normal fear neurological system, will go, there'll just be this jolt of fear, like, "Oh, what did I do?" Because the child's like, "I want to hit younger sister," and then all of a sudden, parent freaks out, and then that essentially downloads this fear response in the parent or in the child, and the child's like, "Oh," and then the child learns, when I hit, they learn to associate fear with hitting other people. And so you could almost consider that like at least one component of building empathy for others is I feel a fear response as I'm trying to harm others. without that fear response, you hit your younger sister, your parent freaks out. You don't feel, you notice your mom freaking out, but you're not afraid of it. You're just like, huh? And it doesn't give you that neurological association of fear to yourself while hurting other people. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. So one of the hallmarks of psychopathy is that you don't get afraid, and you're very calm and cool under situations that would cause other people a lot of fear. That's why psychopaths often do impulsive things. They can be violent suddenly because, one of the reasons why a lot of us aren't violent suddenly is because we're afraid of being hit. We're afraid of what might happen in retaliation, whereas psychopaths don't necessarily care about that. Anyway, so psychopaths can often be very cool and calm under situations where other people would be distressed. The other possibility is that he is in a lot of distress. He's not a psychopath, but he just presents himself or knows how to calm himself down. Or there's another possibility that he believes he's innocent and he trusts the police because he is a privileged person and just is fine. But I don't know which one it is. I can't know. I probably will never know. The other thing we're hearing is that he's saying she was working on her blog. She started freaking out, and so I locked her out of the car. It's not making a lot of... Let's rewind this, because I think this is kind of important to hear his account. Because imagine if it was what really happened, or the way that he's saying it, in terms of he's not a problem. I'm just trying to imagine what he might say if he were innocent. I would imagine someone in his position would say, like, I need help. Can you direct me to some kind of a hospital or a mental health facility, because I'm really worried about my girlfriend right now, my fiance. And maybe we'll hear that, but let's rewind it and hear his account, because I think this is kind of important.
Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now. So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her, so like I lock the car and I walk away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything, so I give her time, and we really had a nice morning, if anything, but she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going.
She was getting worked up as we were getting going and getting her day going. She was getting worked up. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that anyone watching it would describe it that way, or is that his distorted way of thinking, that as he's beating her, that, look at you, you're getting all worked up again? Who knows? Let's watch.
I want to go like arches before this stuff.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted me. I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's.
All right, that's interesting. I didn't notice that. He has scratches on his face. The police officer says, can you tell me what's happening with the scratches on your face? He says, she had her cell phone in her hand. Okay, so I'm trying to imagine what that would involve, that you would scratch someone's face with a cell phone. I don't know, it's interesting. Wow, so if that's true, that's an interesting detail, right? Is that because she was defending herself, which seems likely? Is it because she also has a violent streak and was being unfair in the moment? Who knows? Because the other thing that could happen, which of course makes sense, is that if you're in a high control relationship and you're being victimized, you're not going to always be dealing with that emotionally very well. And you can have PTSD. Often people do, from victimhood in an intimate partner violence relationship. And sometimes when you are triggered, you can become violent and can perpetrate violence on other people because you've been abused, right? You have anger, you have triggers. So I don't know, but let's continue watching.
No, I shouldn't push her. I was just trying to push her away to go, let's just take a minute, step back and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said.
All right, so the police officer is asking, why did you hit the curb? And he's saying, well, we hit the curb because she grabbed the wheel. She also said that the erratic driving was because she was distracting him. Maybe that's what she was referring to. Let's see what we learn more.
I can't believe we're getting pulled over in this certificate.
What about the speed? Did she take over the? Did
No,
she take over the pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of, like, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel.
Okay, so he is saying that he is shaking. He has adrenaline, so that, who knows if he's telling the truth, but if he is, that would lean in the direction possibly away from psychopathy. Who knows? It's not like psychopaths can't have adrenaline and have a fight or flight reaction, but it does lead more towards the hypothesis that he is having a lot of distress right now, but he just doesn't show it. And there are people who are like that, who are raised in a certain way that they're taught that they shouldn't signal to other people how they're feeling because no one cares. Who knows, but that can happen, particularly for males, for men, for boys. They will learn that they need to be strong and they can't, show their feelings. So maybe if he wasn't socialized that way, he would be crying, or he would be upset, or he would be signaling more emotional distress. I don't know. Let's continue watching.
So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah. I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up. So we're just grabbing water for the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because they're planning still to go for a hike, but it's good. I'm really sorry about that.
Of course. Do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just take a seat right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. I apologize.
You don't have anything in that pocket or anything?
All right. So I've read enough people commenting on their reaction to this video. I haven't seen this video before, but I've heard people talking about it, that they will say, and I've been waiting to see signs of it. Maybe we'll see signs of it later, but they will say, oh, Brian is clearly a narcissist. He's gaslighting the police officer. He is, playing everyone like a fiddle. And that's possible, but it's also possible that he is being genuine in this moment, and he also is an abuser. You can be an abuser, and this is what I was talking about earlier. We want to see bad guys and good guys, and we have this vision of abusers as these evil human beings. Maybe even people who kill in passion we will see as these evil human beings, and that act is evil and it is terrible, and we need to use the full extent of the law with these individuals. But I have treated, when you actually interface with perpetrators, and this was almost always the case, I would like them on a certain level. I would not like their behavior, but I would find them to be likable human beings. Not always. There were some of them that were harder to like than others, let's just put it that way. And that was my role. Was as a therapist, I'm there to help them, and I have to build a relationship with them. And keep in mind that I am, trying to help them reduce their violent behavior and their attitudes that contribute to that. And also trying to have them understand me, have them believe me, have them be influenced by me, if you will. I found that a lot of these perpetrators were likable people I could relate to, but because of their relational traumas and their reactivity and their entitlement that they've been shown by society or their family or modeled in their parents' relationship, they have this really horrible behavior. And so it's possible that he is psychopathically playing everyone like a fiddle. It's also possible that he is an abusive individual and a murderer who in this moment is frazzled, doesn't know what to do, maybe a little bit confused, compliant, maybe even telling the truth that she was violent with him. All those things can happen. She could have scratched him, not in self-defense. He could be freaking out right now. He could be genuinely sorry about some things. And he could be a murderous, abusive individual. All those things can exist. We have this movie version of evildoers that says like they're always up to no good. They're always scheming. They're always playing everyone. They have no emotion. They don't care about other people. There are individuals like that. They're extremely rare. He could be one of them, but I'm just trying to help people, and why do I care? Well, it's because when we have this cartoonish version of abusive people, we don't detect abuse when it's happening to us. This is one of the reasons why abuse happens so often is because we have this cartoonish version of an abusive person that doesn't match our partner, but our partner might actually have a lot of wonderful qualities and also be abusive.
Where'd you hit him? You slapped him first? It's on his face? How many times did you slap?
Bravo, Romeo, India, Alpha, November.
And then what? And his reaction was to do what?
It's going to be out of Florida.
He just grabbed you? Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him.
Okay, so the officer is interviewing her and asking, did you hit him? And she's saying, I think she's saying yes. It's hard to hear what she's saying. We're hearing what he's saying, her saying, but I think what she's saying is, yes, I hit him. And he's asking for context, like, why did you hit him? Were you hitting in self-defense? It's okay if you tell us that he was hitting you also. Let's see what she says.
I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you. Because, where did he hit you? Don't worry, be honest.
I can't hear what she's saying, but I think what she's saying is he didn't hit me, but he did grab me. What can we make of this? Now, we did hear from a witness that saw him hitting her earlier this day, which is frustrating that the police don't know about that. But she's not saying it, which lends itself to this hypothesis that she is in a high control, abusive, intimate partner violence relationship. And she's either gaslit into believing that she doesn't understand reality, or she's trying to protect him because she is in a dependent relationship with him, or she's afraid of retaliation from him if she does tell the police, or some other reason why she would withhold that detail. Another possibility, I just want to look at the orientation here, and I don't know if I'm just reading into things, but you have all these men who are large and in charge, and they've got guns, and you have this tiny woman who looks like is an abuse victim, ongoing abuse victim in a misogynistic, sexist world, and we are expecting her to feel comfortable enough to disclose about her experience. It's possible that she incorrectly or correctly believes that these large men, police officers, the power structure, are not open to her discussing her victimhood, and she is entering a mode where it's like, look, the fastest way from A to B, I need this to be over. No one's going to believe me, so I'm just going to say what I need to say for this to be over, and we'll go on our way. I could see that happening, but I can't tell from the situation. And again, we might not ever know because she's dead now and we can't ask her.
You slapped your face or what? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So has he been drinking?
No, we don't drink.
Okay. What was up with his driving? This officer said he hit a curb. While you're driving?
Well, he was driving.
While he was driving, you were hitting him?
Not a lot.
Again, I can't hear what she's saying. Maybe other people can decipher what she's saying, but I think she's just reiterating what she's been saying, that he didn't hit her. We hear a detail, which I think is important, that they don't drink, according to her. Drinking can raise the risk of violence happening and conflict in a relationship. So it's something to note.
Come on, I kind of want do something.
Did you already tell him all this?
I didn't get that far into
Okay,
it. She
so
was hyperventilating
She's
a little
saying
bit.
that they don't drink, but at the point when you lit them up,
They don't drink or anything.
She started hitting him.
I was yelling at him, and then when you turned your lights on, I kind of punched his arm like there's no just an idiot.
she's saying was why he hit the curb. You said it was Gabby?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I remember that name was Gabby.
Yeah.
Try to meditate and stuff, but you tend to have a lot of anxiety and stress.
I have a lot of anxiety.
And what's his name? Is it Brian?
So I don't know what this line of questioning is. I see it going in two different directions, or both, from the police officer. They're both using words like she was hyperventilating earlier. That's not my perception. She didn't seem to be. Hyperventilation is a specific medical syndrome resulting from breathing too much and having too much oxygen, usually as a result of anxiety, but not always. She didn't seem to be hyperventilating. She seemed to be crying and in a lot of distress, which is normal to cry and to, be upset when bad things are happening. So there seemed to be a bit of a hysterical woman vibe to that. I don't know. And then they are saying, so do you seem to be like an anxious person? This could be a line of questioning because they care and they're trying to help her, or they're trying to figure out, is this a violent situation, or was there some sort of mental health episode that happened? I could see, given how little information they have at this point, that would be a good direction to go down. I don't know if the police are qualified to do that, or these officers are. I know some officers are. Or another option is that they're trying to blame her and say, you have these mental health issues, there's something wrong with you. Look at you, you're all hysterical and hyperventilating. Look at your boyfriend over there, he's cool as a cucumber. Maybe that's what's happening, but maybe we'll see more.
Is he usually pretty patient with you?
Yeah, but it just makes me upset. I know that he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot.
Okay, more along those lines. The audio keeps cutting out, in and out, I think because they've redacted certain audio, but he's saying, is he usually the relaxed one? And she's like, yeah, he's usually the calm one. And then she describes some more behavior. I think what she's basically reiterating is, I have issues with him. Anyway, let's see if we can. I guess I'm frustrated because I wish I could just talk with her and just say, okay, forget about this incident. Tell me about your whole relationship. Because that's really what I think a lot of people watching would be interested in. Of course, the police, I think, are mainly interested in the incident because that's what they're supposed to do. But wouldn't it be great if someone was there to be like, okay, you know what? Hey, the two of you, what's going on? Is there violence in general? Because this incident, like if someone came to me in my office and told me the broad strokes, if they both sat down on my couch and told me the broad strokes, I would be highly alarmed that they had an incident in the car where because of their fight, they were swerving all over the road and going 45 and a 15, and he had scratches on his face. I would say, whoa, we have to really drill down on this hardcore, because this is a big deal. This is not okay. This can result in terrible things happening, including murder, by the way. So wouldn't it be nice if someone were there to just say, hey, let's let this breathe, give us the full context here? Because I'm worried I'm not going to get that. Sometimes y'all will ask me to watch a video and I'm like, oh, okay, this will be interesting. But then by the end, I feel more frustrated than I did at the beginning, because the video didn't give us enough information for me to feel like I have a grasp on what happened. And I suppose I need to be okay with not understanding what's happening all the time, but I don't know, it feels incomplete or somehow imbalancing to not know like what was going on there.
Way of taking my anxiety and bringing it down, but my ex-wife, I'm just sharing, I know it's a little personal, but to help you understand, we would feed off each other's anxiety and it would spiral, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much I loved her. It may be bad for your soul, just saying. And I'm not telling you what to do with your life, but if you know you have anxiety, look at the situations you can get in, you know what I mean? And we're not here to be mean to you or anything. Well, you know, there's a first time and then it usually, we'll go see what Brian's saying, but I think you've heard everything now from...
Quick question, you said you were hitting him?
So it kind of seems like the police have concluded for themselves that she had some kind of anxiety episode, attacked him, and that she's to blame. I will say, based on what they've heard from each person, I will say if you don't understand abusive relationships, if you don't pay attention to her emotional state, or maybe even if you do, if you see it of a certain direction, then I guess the evidence is pointing in that direction. She's claimed that she's hit him. He has claimed she's hit her. She has hit him. She is saying, I didn't hit him. out of self-defense. They don't know about the previous incidents, which is frustrating. I suppose it makes sense that they would conclude that she is to blame, but I feel like anyone who understands intimate partner violence relationships would say, well, maybe we can conclude about this particular instance, but we can't necessarily know what's happening in the broader context. It's frustrating that they're concluding so fast. And what can we expect from police? I know some police departments will do this, where the police will do a little bit of investigation, but they will call an expert, maybe even another police officer who understands this, and then they will sit down with people and actually take the time to do a full assessment from an educated place. It looks like we're not going to get that.
In the arm, did you grab the steering wheel?
No, I didn't.
You did not touch the steering
wheel. I didn't touch the steering wheel, but only for like a second, because I just saw the lights come on, and it was more just like, you're an idiot. Like, you know.
But did you grab the steering wheel and like swerve or anything like that?
No. I didn't touch the steering wheel at all.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this door again. Do you have enough air back here, or do you want me to kick it up some more?
Do you have any water?
I will see if I can find some.
We heard another detail. She's saying, I didn't grab the wheel, but I did touch the wheel when I saw the police, and I said, you're an idiot. All right. So if we were there, one scenario, it sounds like, according to her account, is she was being verbally abusive to him. Now, is that in reaction to the gaslighting and the ongoing abuse and the high control that earlier in the day he was beating her and putting her down, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and then she just, reached her limit and was very upset and striking back? Is that what we're seeing? I don't know.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
You wouldn't happen to have any water, would you? Can I get a bottle?
Did you already give a statement for this officer?
I've got this gentleman here.
Yeah. This gentleman noticed that you had some marks on your neck. Yeah. And she's got some marks on her too. We're just trying to figure out what all happened. And I know you probably already told your story. This officer is probably going to be the one handling the whole case. Do you want to listen to what he has to say? And then you tell him what happened. So if you don't mind.
Start at the beginning for me.
Start at the beginning. Well, I don't want to go too far back, but we've been in BLM land for the past week or so, traveling around, and the flies here are pretty intense. So the flies have definitely been getting to her, and then my feet are dirty and everything. So I think that our little squabble started because we were hanging out at the coffee shop, and when we got back to the van, there was some dirt and stuff in the van, and I moved our food around. It was a little disorganized. So
okay, so they're starting from the beginning. He's saying, I don't want to go too far back, but if I go back to this morning, she doesn't like when things are dirty, essentially is what she's saying. And then there was some things that were going wrong. We started to fight about it. Let's see more.
Will you take this? Sorry about that.
it's okay.
Do you need any water?
That's okay.
It's hot out here.
We were going to get water because we ran out, but it's okay. No, it's okay. I don't like plastic bottles. It's okay. Thank you, though. But we just had a little disagreement there. And the disagreement was just that she was getting a little worked up, and I was saying, no, it's okay, thank you so much.
As long as it's cool, that's good.
So it was just more of a disagreement, and I just wanted to say...
What was the disagreement about?
It was, I wouldn't even call it disagreement. It was just that I'm dirty and I can't change being dirty. Like, I got dirty feet, I got sand on my flip-flops and stuff like that. It was that we were at the coffee shop for so long because we were there from 9 to 3. So I guess there's a few little things, little relationships. I don't know if you're in a relationship, but I'm sure you
I've been married for over 5 years now.
Okay, so he's saying there were little things this morning. I wouldn't even call it a disagreement. It was just little tiny things. Now, we know that a witness reported that the two of them he was beating her. So if that's true, which seems likely to be true that it was them, who knows, then that's notable. And that's one of the things that abusive people will do, is that you'll hear them minimizing. Criminals actually will do this a lot too. They will downgrade it from like a hit and run. They'll be like, oh, it was just a bump. In fact, I don't even know if I touched him. In fact, I don't even think I was in my car that day. They do that. And who knows, but if he is an abusive person, if he was beating her earlier, if he knows that he could get caught and be, charged with a crime, then one might be motivated to try to downgrade everything to, look, okay, yeah, it was a bad morning. We had to just, in fact, we weren't even in a fight. It was just a mild disagreement. In fact, it wasn't even a disagreement. It wasn't anything. We were just kind of talking about something. In fact, you know what? There was no problem at all. Usually it's because, one, they're trying to get away with something and they don't want to get in trouble. But two, it's kind of how they think. Abusive people, and I've talked with perpetrators, they do this to themselves because they have two, and these are the non-psychopathic abusers, they have this warring elements inside of them where on one side of them is like, I'm an abusive person, I need to change, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with this relationship, or I don't know, but I cross the line sometimes. Another side of them is trying to preserve their self-esteem. And because a lot of perpetrators have very low self-esteem, by the way, and they will feel very ashamed and will have a lifetime of need to have a way of going into denial about that to preserve the little bit of self-esteem that they have. And so this other part of him kicks in and is like, it's a fine, don't worry about it. It was justified, don't think about it. It didn't really happen. It's almost like they gaslight themselves in a sense. And then that part of them dominates them, and then that part of them dominates the other person. But there often is a part of them that understands and is terribly ashamed of what they've done. But it's so hard for them to deal with. And that's a big part of perpetrator treatment, is getting that part of them to emerge and to express themselves, while I, as a therapist, care for them so that they can live in that shameful place where they can live with. And that was when I knew that we had gotten to the next phase of therapy with perpetrators, was when they could say, oh, I'm so ashamed of, when I think about that, I have to think about all the other things I've done, and and they break down, their self-esteem would fall through the floor. They might have a really bad month as a result of that realization. It's very unpleasant for them. So I don't know, but we might be seeing evidence of that, where that part of him is kicking in and saying, it wasn't even a fight. It's nothing. It doesn't even matter.
There's a lot of little things.
Yeah, I can go.
And
I get it.
We weren't physical before the point where I said, all right, let's just take a breather and like walk away for a minute. I'll lock the van up and I'll go for a walk this way, and you can go walk that way on the block. There's that what is it called, moonflower?
Right,
yeah. Nice areas. You can go either way. It's all shaded. So let's go for a little walk and breathe and come back. We're happy with it. I'm not upset with her. She got worked up and she had her phone in her hand and her keys and everything. And she wanted, not her keys, her rings. She had her rings, her phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And my big fear is, I don't have my phone. I don't have my phone. So she goes off without me. I'm on my own. So I was saying, let's just go for a walk, and she was trying to get the keys for me. So I was just going, just wait, back up, and that's when she hit me. And I didn't get, I don't want to push you, but I didn't get overtly physical. I was just trying to keep her away.
Okay, I didn't get overly physical. So he's admitting that he was physical with her. But I think what he's implying is it was all in self-defense, and I don't know if the police are believing him at this point. Let's watch.
Not get hit, and then I got really loud, and like that's probably everyone's attention where I was going, back up, get away, just give me a.
Okay, so you said you pushed her to create some distance, obviously, right? What happened after that? What got the scratches on your eye?
The phone.
The phone. So you pushed her and she hit you?
She was. It wasn't like a push and she jumped on me. She was already. I don't want to. She was already swinging, and I was multiple. Yeah. A lot of angles, a lot of nails, a lot of rings.
Yeah. You got 3 scratches in your neck. You got one on your left side of your nose. You got one in your face here, and you got 4 bleeding over it. So it looks like 2 hands coming in.
Do you mind lifting up your right sleeve for me? I'm curious about something.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
what's that from? I suppose fingernails, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about it.
So, wow. I mean, he has multiple wounds from fingernails, cell phone, rings. So this is a major incident, regardless of how you cut it. Whether one believes she was the perpetrator or him or no one or both. For the police to roll up, hear about violence in a relationship, and to see blood and wounds on someone, that's significant.
Bruised or tender or anything like
No,
that?
no. Okay. I'm fine. I love Gabby. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. I'm just, I feel bad I had to get so public. I was just trying to be loud to listen. This is, I try to make her calm down and be like, look, everyone's watching.
So he just talked about, I don't want things to go public. She's trying to get her blog going. It's another factor that we have to think about, that this could, because I know their blog was focused on the two of them going on a van road trip, at least the current version of her blog. And she's trying to make a living doing that. And I wonder if her, and maybe him to some extent, but we heard earlier that he wasn't really on board with her blog career choice. But for her, it's possible that she's terrified that if the truth comes out. So this is interesting to think about, because I've seen a lot of the reports and her blog posts. It's that style of blog or Instagram account where it's all about travel and fun and healthy food and hiking and a relationship that is great and hammocks and puppies and it's the good part of life, let's just say, happy things. It's not about, let's say, reality. It's not about moments like this. And so who knows, but for Gabby, it's possible that she in this moment is thinking, if this gets out into the public that he is a terrible person and or our relationship is terrible, then I will have no career. My career is going to fall apart, because this is not the style of blog that I am trying to create. This is not the brand that I'm trying to create. And so I need to play this down. And as a side, and again, I'm really speculating here, that she might say, my style of blog does include self-deprecation, because I want to be real. I want to lead the way. I want to lead by example as someone who is able to take responsibility for their own issues. And maybe that's another factor here. I don't know. I feel like I'm shooting in the dark.
Go take a walk. So that she was trying to get in. She eventually couldn't get in and actually clawed her way in through the driver's door. He says, I don't understand why she's doing that. Well, I think it's because it was the only door that wasn't locked that she could get through. So she's trying to get in over him. He's trying to disengage from her. I guess he hung her backpack on the back probably so she'd have her shit so that he didn't have to engage with her.
All right, so we're hearing a little bit more detail there. I don't know if I'm understanding what's happening, but what it sounds like to me, based on what the police officer is saying, what they were saying, is that Brian was going to abandon her there. Either one of them said that Brian put her backpack on the back, was locking her out. She had to, claw her way back into the van through the driver's side window. So it sounds like he was going to abandon her, maybe. Is that because it was a normal reaction to an abusive Gabby? Or was this part of the abusive cycle that Brian has been perpetrating against her? At the very least, even though their reports seem downplayed, when you actually look through to the details of this, it is shocking. When you think about him chasing her down the sidewalk, beating her on the sidewalk, claws and rings and blood and, abandoning, it sounds extremely violent, highly conflictual, a lot of reason for people to slow down and be, okay, wait, we need a specialist in here. Let's look at what's happening here, particularly given that these sometimes do escalate to murder. It happens enough that I think they should have paid more attention, honestly. But I don't know. I don't know what the police are trained to do. I don't know what they're supposed to do. I don't know what their funding is. But again, it's just such a tragedy that she was killed. And it just seems like, couldn't we have done something in this moment to prevent that?
So at this point, you're the victim of a domestic assault. That even if you didn't want to pursue this, we don't have a choice. The best thing we can do to not... The law says we have to charge her. It doesn't say we have to put her in jail. Okay? But it also says we have to separate, do a no contact order, and that we have to put her in jail if we cannot separate. And the little problem here is you guys out of Florida living in the van together. How are we supposed to separate you guys? Now, I don't want to take this small 20, what is she?
Yes, a 22-year-old
blonde
hair, blue-eyed
that you could definitely defend yourself against, but at the same time, we can't say because you're a male and she's a female, we can't treat this different than if you were the male hitting her. I mean, we got to treat it the same.
Yeah, no.
So she's kind of in a tough spot. So unless you have an idea about how she could not go to jail and be separated, you have friends in town, somewhere she could stay. Tomorrow, if you want to, it's up to you. You
Can I go to jail?
You can't because we don't have a charge for you. Now tomorrow, if you wanted to be with her again tomorrow,
I'm gonna take your radio.
if you want to be with her again tomorrow, because it's after 5, so office is closed, so you can go to the police department and fill out a waiver.
It's interesting. I haven't shown all the clips, but Brian is joking around frequently enough to make it seem odd to me. This is a pretty serious situation, especially as the officer is laying out what his conclusion is, that Gabby was the primary aggressor. You have physical wounds. Someone's possibly going to have to go to jail here. She's going to have to probably go to jail. I don't know if that's appropriate. And then he's joking around. We also heard Brian say, "Can I go to jail?" And, you know, it's interesting. I don't know what that says in the bigger picture here, but if someone is abusive in a situation like that, in a situation like this, then generally speaking, they just want the police to go away. And so often they'll say or do whatever, maybe joke around, maybe claim that they're the nice guy so that the police will just go away. Sometimes though, the victims will get put in jail because they are striking back. That happens sometimes for sure, because of the reasons that I was talking about earlier. But you know, this is an interesting interaction that's happening right now. Again, given what we know from a witness that saw them before, where he was the aggressor, given that there's a good likelihood that he murdered her, this whole scene seems extremely problematic. But the police officers don't know those things. Maybe they're not trained to look at the bigger picture. I don't know.
How you answer this question is going to determine what happens next. But the only person who can answer this question is you. Think very hard before you answer the question. Do not quickly answer it. Think very hard. When you slapped him those times, were you attempting to cause him physical pain or physical impairment? Was that what you were attempting to do to him? No. What were you attempting to do? What was the reason behind the slapping and stuff? What was it you were attempting to accomplish by slapping?
I was trying to get him to stop telling me to calm down.
Well, it doesn't sound to me like she attempted to injure him.
Okay, so if you just go by the verbatim responses here, and the police are doing, I think, an okay job at drilling down on the crux of the matter. They're trying to say, why were you hitting him? And they're, I think, instructing her pretty well of like, think before you answer, because this is very important, and only you can answer this question. Why were you hitting him? And were you doing it because you're trying to inflict physical pain or physical impairment? She's like, no, never. I would never try to do that. Okay, then why? And she says, you can see her kind of hesitating a little bit, and says, I was trying to get him to stop telling me to calm down. If you go by the verbatim, that's terrible. You know, if I, you know, me and my wife, I'm out of control. She's telling me, will you calm down? You're scaring me. And then I start hitting her because she's telling me to calm down. That's terrible, right? That's a crime. It's abusive. It's unfair. It's violent. It's terrible. But look at her face. Like, now, you could interpret that one of two ways. Maybe that's shame. Like, oh, I'm a terrible person. I beat him because he was telling me to calm down, and I beat him. Looked at another way, especially in the context of all the information, the other details we have, of which is actually not a lot, but we have other details, and some of them we might not find out until later after a court date or more, you know, evidence is shown, but regarding the murder. But we could interpret this face as, I don't know what else to say, and I'm terrified of telling you the truth. Or this situation is yet another situation where I don't feel safe enough to tell people what's really happening, and I'm telling you what's happening with my face, and I'm saving myself by saying another thing. You know, I have to tell you one thing, but please read my face. Is that what's happening right now? Given everything we've seen, it seems like that might be a possibility, a pretty good possibility, and it kind of just breaks my heart to think that if in this moment she was trying to tell people, okay, this is how I'm answering, but you know, it's like there's a break-in in your house and someone's got a gun to your head, and the police call and ask you if you're okay, and you're like, yeah, I'm fine, but you're hoping that the other people will hear something in your voice or just know what's really happening. Is that what we're seeing right now? All right, well, that does it for that episode. It's just a tragedy. It's awful. It's mildly, I'm gonna have to take some time to relax and I don't know, just sit with what I've seen here and knowing what happens later on. It's terrible. We have a problem in our society regarding a lot of elements that we see here. The fact that people right now are being abused, are being harmed, are being controlled, or being gaslit. And we have things in place. And by the way, there's the hotline, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can just Google it and chat or call anonymously if you're a victim or you know someone that's a victim. There are things in place. There are shelters, there are advocates, there's the law presumably can help, and therapists can help as well. There are answers. So, and sometimes it doesn't always mean breaking up. I've worked with couples or individuals who are victims who don't want to break up with the perpetrator. They want to change the relationship, and I've worked on that. And it takes time, and it's a bumpy road, but you know, so there are options, and there's flexibility, and but the bottom line is that you do not deserve to be treated that way. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to feel like you can do and say what you want without there being some abuse happening. You deserve to hang out with your friends when you want to. You deserve to say what you want to within reason. You deserve to complain to your spouse and say, I don't like it when you do this, without feeling like something bad is going to happen to you as a result. You deserve to sleep easy. You deserve to be able to trust your partner that they're not going to harm your children or harm you or lie about you in public or something. You know, you deserve those kinds of things. And however we can get you there, let's see if we can get you there. And part of that might be reaching out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Part of it might be talking with a friend, talking with a therapist, talking with the police, talking with a domestic violence advocate, which you can connect with on the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So, and this stuff happened. I had a friend, a colleague of mine, who had a client murder his daughter and his wife because of similar circumstances like this, and you know, it's just, it's so tragic, and it's just really is sad that people would take it to that level. It's, you know, just break up with them. Just be like, I don't want to be with this person anymore. Break up, fine, move on. But why do you have to kill someone? It just boggles the mind, and to end a life that's so young and so much potential. And you know, she seemed like a sweet person. You know, maybe with some issues, but definitely, you know, not any reason to harm her at all. It's just, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to watch. And yeah, everyone out there, take care of yourself, take care of others, because we all deserve it. We really do.